Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate MBA podcast. This podcast is all about getting the topics of business or MBA in just one episode that feels like one good semester in itself. Today we have Harinder Singh Pelia with us. He does not need a lot of introduction in the marketing circles in India, but still, I would ask Harinder, maybe Harinder, if you want to introduce yourself to the guests on the podcast or to the audience of the
Hey,
podcast.
thanks, Sachin. First of all, thanks for inviting me. I think we connected even earlier when you were looking to build this podcast. So very happy with the way you've taken it, and I really hope that you're able to build it and scale it from a discovery and distribution perspective. So congratulations. So from a introduction perspective, yeah. So I'm a marketer at heart, marketer by profession. That's what I do. That's the only thing I've ever studied, ever done. Graduation, post graduation, I studied only marketing, where I was very clear beginning say, okay, there's pretty much if I do anything else in life, I'll fail miserably. So that was very clear to me. So I made a detour also एक time पे and did those CFA level 1 exams. Where I thought कि investment banking करेंगे तो पैसा छापेंगे. So वो clear करने के बाद मेरे को realize हुआ कि why am I lying to myself? And I very quickly came back to marketing. I thought that's my first and only love. So, studied at Symbiosis and IMT Ghaziabad. After that, worked in the electronics and smartphone spaces. Started with carrier air conditioners. Moved on to Micromax when they were right at the top, giving Samsung a very tough fight, and also saw the brand decline very very quickly. Moved on to Reliance to head marketing for Diesel India, which was the big pivot from a career perspective, from a skill as well as exposure perspective for tier two cities, luxury penetration. I worked on many projects on Satyapal when we acquired the brand and did a brand refresh. Worked on Hamleys when the global acquisition was done, and there was a digital marketing playbook which was supposed to be set. Uh, and my last role at Reliance was to do marketing for Agio Lux, for the Lux platform, which was built on Agio.com. So there, I was the first marketing person to come onto the team and pretty much help build everything around. Amazing 0 to 1 kind of an exercise today. It's giving most of the incumbent players a run for their money. Currently, I work at Amazon, again in Amazon Fashion. Have a fairly interesting mandate here. I'm working on some very interesting 0 to 1 parts of the business here in private brand space specifically. But yeah, I've also done work on premiumization, designer wear, eyewear, plus size, those kind of segments, which are small but future scalable opportunities for Amazon fashion. So that's what I currently do. Uh, so
That's like
that's
one of
about
the
it.
best marketing series that I've heard, an introduction that I've heard in quite some time. So, Harinder, since your work is revolved around marketing, so there is a company in India that is IPOing itself, a, a, a beauty products company that is built primarily on influencers. So, do influencers really help in marketing a product or create a sustainable user base?
Hmm. So, short answer, yes. Long answer, it's much more complicated than that, right? So, long answer is that to get influencers right. See, whenever you are trying to solve a marketing problem for any business, whether it's a kirana shop or if it's a post IPO large scale blue chip, some principles of marketing are very very universal. What will each channel do? What do I want from each of these channels? And then how do I measure the profitability or the scalability of each of these channels? क्या effort लग रहा है उसके अंदर, क्या cost लग रहा है, क्या time लग रहा है, what is the flexibility in that channel? For example, influencer as a channel is I think often very very kind of not used in the best possible way by a lot of players in the market. Mamaearth has done it well for sure. A bunch of other D2C brands, they've done it very very well. Is it cheap? Definitely not. It's one of the most expensive from a CAC perspective to be able to acquire customers. But in case you want to engage, inspire, educate customers, especially in the beauty space, it's a great channel to use. But uske bhi nuances hai, right? You have to use the right person for the right communication, what we call source credibility and what we also call message credibility. Maybe Harinder is the right person to talk about recommending biryani places, but if I talk about fitness and the new gym, then you say, "Arey, तुम कौन होते बोलने वाले," right?
Yeah.
So the thing is that the right message needs to come from the right people. So selection of the right influencers along with the right message going through them for the right kind of brand with all the other surround sound which we create through marketing. So everything needs to work together. So I think Mama Earth has got it done well. Reach, access, distribution बनाने के लिए I definitely feel influencers are important. But as an industry, are we extracting the best, most efficient use of influencers? I think we are far from it.
So a question. Let's say that there's a film star who's promoting pan masala. So
Hmm.
people would not have like we can say okay, kar raha hai, theek hai, it's okay. But if I see a YouTube video where an influencer is forcefully fitting product, let's say any of the product, maybe VPN, maybe Mama Earth or anything, I feel like ये paid promotion कर रहा है.
Hmm.
And you have some sort of, what do you say, like some sort of disdain or some sort of not so happiness about that thing. Do
Yeah,
you think that impact a lot of these brands or will impact going forward because a lot of like it will become a lot of promotion, 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 right, in everything?
absolutely. So, I think every channel, right, has its own maturity stage. Or your product integrations, brand advertising is a part of every channel. So even if you look at, say, when Facebook started, Facebook was about connecting with your friends and family, finding out long lost friends. So that was a proposition. Suddenly, बीच में ads आने लग गए.
Yep.
Same thing happens with every platform out there, right? Initially, it's nice and fun and engaging, and there's a magic trick to it, and you deepen your engagement, but suddenly उसमें ads आने शुरू हो जाते हैं. Does that create a dissonance with you? Does that deplete your user experience? 100% it does, right? Now coming back to the question that you asked, maybe even when the first movies were written which had product integrations, some of them were great, some of them were very very blatant. जब आपको लग रहा है यार ये बेच रहा है story, just taking a detour from the story, अचानक से starting to sell something, like I just felt disconnected. But some of them are beautifully done. Like if you see all the James Bond films, all the Mission Impossible films, Hollywood does a stellar job of integrating product in a very very organic way to the content. So I think that maturity has come in that channel. In films, and product placement has come. But in case you look at YouTube videos of content creators, that maturity has not yet come, because you think this is a 3 to 5 year old phenomenon, right? People start with
Yeah.
TVF, AIB se start hua tha product integration. If you remember the earlier skits, which had Snapdeal and some of those, I think Free Charge was very big that time.
Yeah,
So
I think 2013, 2014 में there used to be like a very
absolutely.
subtle drop of a product. Yeah,
Yeah.
TVS pictures में Kingfisher came in, like it was not even covering the full space. It was just there a bottle out there, something like that.
Absolutely. So I think we are still on a journey there to get it right. Some brands, I think a lot of content which TVF produces, I'm a big fan and a consumer as well.
Big
I
fan
think they
here
get
as
it
well.
right. But a lot of influencers and content creators थोड़ा सा blatant हो रहा है, right? At the end of the day, because see, you also have to understand कि incentives कैसे aligned है. That means कि a lot of now becoming an influencer or content creator has become a full-time job. So a lot of people are dependent on brand collaboration and branded content to for their bread and butter. So they're okay becoming a little more out there in like rather than taking strict editorial calls कि ये मैं करूँगा ये मैं नहीं करूँगा. Right. So I think धीरे धीरे that will also come in, because the user is also intelligent, right? You and me also understand. Like you feel कि अरे I was watching a skit and I was watching a film or an ad, or I was watching content from you, the influencer who I'm supposed to follow. आप अचानक से बेचने क्यों लग गए? But that's how all channels sustain and survive. But of course, it needs to be done with finesse. Now, when you see Instagram, when Instagram ads came for the first time, you felt a little freaky. You felt कि अरे ad कहाँ से आ गया? But now it's a native part of the platform. So I feel even with
You
influencers and
skip
branded
it.
content,
Like you know the ad is coming, you skip it.
absolutely. So that is also a part of, like, so you are uh, like human beings have this ability to switch off their brains to switch off advertising, right? Because it is a cognitive overload. You go to a news website, desktop पे आप टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया खोल के देखो, एनडीटीवी खोल के देखो, आगे पीछे ऊपर नीचे, and it's not an isolated example of news website. There's ads everywhere just trying to vie for attention. Why have you gone to the website? What is the primary value you are getting from that website? Is you are getting some information. Everything around it is trying to sell to you. So
It
we
feels like a coaching class building with banners all around.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल तो वही हो रहा है सीन. So we have this way of switching ourselves off to advertising, even when and this is not a new phenomenon. Yeah, जब हम बच्चे थे, we used to watch whatever we used to watch on Cartoon Network, and even when we would watch like K serials with our moms on Star Plus, right? शो चल रहा है, अचानक से बीच में there is a 3 minute break, and you're able to just do other things. खाना खा लिया, ये कर लिया, बात कर लिया, right? You immediately supposed to switch off, unless and until the creative was very very compelling and you remember some of those ads. But for most of them, to avoid cognitive overload, अपने दिमाग को बंद करने, that's how the mind is trained for everybody. And this is
Yeah.
modern advertising is like that. So it's not only influencers and content creators, every channel goes through that.
But the difference is
Hmm.
an influencer puts ad within the video that you're watching, and the ads that used to come on TV or the ads that come on, let's say, when you watch a movie are outside that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of movies have inside movie advertisement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That
Yeah, so I think that's where some turnoff happens.
it is. It is. See, at the end of the day, I believe that if there's a person who's a food blogger, and I have followed them to understand more about food, their experiences, kya khaya, kya banaya, so on and so forth, right? That's the value as a user I am deriving from their content. If something is a native part of that narrative, if they are selling Zomato, or if they're selling a new ingredient, if they're talking about anything which is native to that context, to food tech, it still passes by. But if suddenly that person is trying to sell me a credit card, you understand, fir lagta hai wo, because that's not the primary value I'm deriving from that content. So yeah, it's a little, it's distributed, it's a little unorganized, it's not, we don't share universal mental models on what's the right way to do product integrations in influencer content or branded content. But I think there's a lot of great work being done, but there's a big tail to the market where there's a lot of shitty content being produced with shitty advertising, and that's why, so that kind of advertising doesn't work for brands also.
Why does it work well for, let's say, if you've seen Yes Theory or Rubinsky,
Yeah,
uh, like they do it very explicitly,
yeah.
and it does not feel like forced on you. So why aren't, like, is there a difference in the way Indians understand marketing? Do they understand it better? The likes of maybe American YouTubers or Canadian YouTubers.
See, the
Is
sample
there
size also on
a
this,
cultural phenomena?
I'm saying the sample size on this call is also like very skewed, right? Because at the end of the day, both of us are MBAs, we view things in a certain way, not necessarily representative of the population. So while it may hurt you and me to see some of that stuff, it may not be hurting a lot of people as much. A lot of people may not be critically looking at it. They would just blank it out. कि ठीक है यार, ये उसको भी रोजी रोटी चलानी है उसकी, देख लिया. So they focus on the 90%, which is the value content that content creator or influencer brings out. 10% उसको जो उसका बेचना है, वो people just zone it out. That's my hypothesis. I don't know, but for sure, I think there should be more research and there should be better understanding of stuff like this, because it has become a increasingly expensive and increasingly more and more important lever for marketers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Hmm.
So next question on this is, you've done a lot of ads with bigger stars. Like you did a Micromax ad with Anil Kapoor, which was pretty famous at that point of time.
Yeah,
I remember writing back to you in 2016 about, that ad somewhere on LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah.
So when you work with these bigger superstars, so to say,
Hmm.
like I mean, does it impact Indian public? Like, do they buy things because Anil Kapoor is there in an ad, or it is just or it gives just it brings people to the shop or to the platform to buy? Like, what is the phenomena behind it? Why do pan masalas get Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan,
Hmm.
and Akshay Kapoor, Kumar?
Okay, so my short answer to this is that, does it help? I'm definitely a fan of celebrity endorsers. I think there is a cut through. Definitely there. If you bring in a voice of credibility, voice of authority to your message, 100% you're able to create the kind of awareness or recall numbers that you want in a shorter span of time. And of course, celebrity ki bhi kuch associations hai, right? Like Shahrukh Khan comes with a certain set of associations. Amitabh stands for trust, and Virat stands for discipline and health, and so on and so forth, right? Those are immediate rub-offs which your brand can get. So am I a fan? Yes, I am a fan. The flip side is it a substitute for shitty creatives? No. Is it a substitute for a shitty storyline on the ad? No, it is definitely not. Can a celebrity carry a badly written ad or a badly done creative? 100% no. See, the thing is, if you're a well-funded startup today, you can hire Dhoni, Sachin, Virat, Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, or Ranveer Singh, as most of them do. But are you the startup who's doing the 27th ad with Ranveer this year? वो 25 ऐड कर चुका है, और are you creating something which is genuinely differentiated? Like, I feel Ching's really used Ranveer Singh very, very well. They created a
They do.
so it's a great creative which integrates with the brand, right? Does your brand have something to say which aligns with Ranveer? That's the question. So at that point in time, see, I'll tell you what was the thought behind it. Micromax had started feeling a lot of heat in the smartphone segment. This was a time when Jio had just come in. Micromax was sitting on a lot of 3G inventory. Um, like on my podcast, I've made a episode with the then CMO of Micromax, who was my boss, Shubhajit Sen. We've discussed what went wrong because we had ringside seats to it. So folks who are interested also listen to that. But I'll tell you what we actually saw. So what the company was trying to do, that okay, smartphones mein there's a lot of heat, so let's start building up the consumer electronics entire side of the business, right? Which had LED TVs and air conditioners, and dheere dheere there was plans of doing washing machines and bunch of like just becoming an integrated home appliance space. Because आपके पास brand है, आपके पास distribution है, आपके पास sourcing strength है, you have pretty much all the raw material in the book. So that was the idea. That was the problem statement ahead of us. Now, if I ask you, for consumer electronics or for home appliances, what is the one feature when you buy any electronics? What is the one thing you really want them to do? एक उसका एक quality सबसे ज़्यादा important.
It should last longer, right?
Absolutely,
It should work.
absolutely. It should last long. So durability is the biggest, and that's where Anil Kapoor's entire persona of being
Oh
durable.
my God. Okay, that's why you got Anil Kapoor.
Absolutely. So he, having been in the industry for X number of years, still going strong, strength to strength, चलता जा रहा है बंदा, right? And he's continuously reinventing himself for the newer generation. So durability as a platform was what we had worked on, and that was the entire thought behind it, and that's how the creative and that's how the films were written uh, around the platform of Micromax Living, and they got a lot of traction. This was a festive campaign for Diwali 2016, if I'm not wrong, and that point in time, it did very well. And so LED TVs from, say, it was a 150 200 crore rupee business, shot up to 950 crores. So in a matter of 2 quarters, suddenly one season in, we had brought in air conditioners. So do celebrity endorsers help? Definitely they help, but it needs to be done intelligently, right? That's what I feel. Okay, example, I'm not a big fan of Vimal advertising, right? To be very honest, I think it's very lazy creative, but the only discount I can give them is यार कि मैं consumer नहीं हूँ, ठीक है? अभी मैं कंज्यूमर नहीं हूँ तो मे बी अनलेस आई सी सॉलिड रिसर्च कि वो चल रहा है नहीं चल रहा है क्यों चल रहा है आई एम श्योर इट्स वर्किंग राइट इफ दे आर प्लाविंग इन करोड़ एंड करोड़ ऑफ रुपीज एवरी क्वार्टर वो चल रहा होगा एंड दे मस्ट बी वेरी स्मार्ट मार्केटर्स आउट देयर हु आर डूइंग इट फॉर द पर्सन हु कंज्यूम्स दैट प्रोडक्ट हु कंज्यूम्स विमल पान मसाला for that consumer maybe seeing कि शाहरुख अजय और अक्षय को मैंने देख लिया and that is aspiration enough maybe it doesn't need a storyline doesn't need a payoff product shot वो सब नहीं चाहिए उसको वो जुबा किसी से खुश है और बंदे देखे थे good looking guys and aspirational guys to me maybe it works and that's why maybe the choice of Ajay Devgan seems great but उसका हम उसको discount दे सकते
It might work with Ajay Devgan, right? Because Ajay Devgan's movies are very famous, and I think the demography which might eat pan masala, Vimal.
absolutely I'm sure there's research gone into this right कि Ajay Devgan probably works and your hypothesis is absolutely right maybe रणवीर नहीं बेच पाएगा वो जो अजय देवगन बेच पाएगा that's what so every product every context every marketing problem has a different solution to it उस solution के लिए बढ़िया है यार वो चल रहा है स्केल कर रहे हैं धंधा हो रहा है क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम है
And probably they have lots of money.
sorry
And probably they have lots of
absolutely yeah
money as
these
well.
that's one product right and the thing is the only way you have a so normally we talk about customer acquisition engagement and retention right the only way your customer is lapsing is in case your customer is dying of cancer otherwise okay, he's a customer for life तो रिटेंशन का प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है आपको आपने कस्टमर को एक्वायर करना है उसके
हाँ,
बाद ही इज screwed for life right so I feel in all of these sin products right like what are called sin products like a whiskey or a cigarette it's a very different kind of a marketing problem because of restrictions which are also there I think I hats off to marketers who are there I have never faced a challenge of that sort but I'm sure उसके भी अपने problems होते होंगे while of course as a marketer you will feel the ethical load of doing marketing and bringing in more users to something which you know clearly is harmful but I'm also of the belief here कि at least उधर तो लोगों को पता है right the government is regulating and कि ये harmful है for folks who are marketing Coca-Cola everybody knows it's not great for you and it's not great for younger kids and there's enough validated peer reviewed research out there to say उधर तो there's no regulation also right you're just putting a product out there which does not have regulation which is validated bad for people so I think the ethical dilemma is for all so money or no money I think these are interesting marketing challenges which each set of marketers solve so I think
a lot of categories are also very different, right? So a liquor shop does not need to put that the liquor shop is this way, that
yeah
way, or this far. They do not need to put their boards. People know where they are.
no, absolutely I think there's push categories and pull categories and जो हम स्टार्टअप लिंगो में बोलते हैं ना प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट लाइक देयर सर्टन कैटेगरीज जहाँ ये सब कॉन्सेप्ट काम ही नहीं करते it's as simple as that यार कि वो so there was a very senior marketer I think he's an IMTN only so he that time headed the marketing for Mother Dairy and so
Okay.
this gentleman said कि मेरे को मार्केटिंग के लिए ना बेसिकली कुछ करना नहीं है फॉर एग्जांपल मैं मेरी लस्सी का अगर स्ट्रॉबेरी फ्लेवर निकालूं अगर मैं एक A4 साइज शीट के ऊपर स्केच पेन से लिख दूँ ना स्ट्रॉबेरी फ्लेवर अवेलेबल, तो मदर डेयरी के बूथ पे पहले दिन पे मेरी 60 करोड़ की सेल हो जाएगी, और व्हाटएवर दैट नंबर इज, राइट? आई एम जस्ट मेकिंग इट अप. That's all they need to do. They just
Mm.
need to ensure availability. So for each marketer, the problem is so bloody different. Whether it is a liquor marketer or whether it is that, some categories are just sheer pull. It's like you don't need to market, for example, a UPI service now. You don't need to market fuel. So like folks will just do it. You just then your marketing problem just starts becoming कि यार इस user को हम up the ladder कैसे लेके जाएं? Premiumization, higher average selling price. Try to get him to spend more on more profitable categories. For example, instead of fuel, they'll always talk about additives and they'll talk about higher expensive fuel. In liquor, they'll always talk about more expensive liquor, which is more than the functional everyday liquor which people have. They'll talk about higher ASP. For example, milk. They'll always talk about the top category. You'll never see an ad for milk, right? You'll always see an ad for Amul Chach, and you'll see an ad for Amul Lassi, and their higher ASP premiumization categories. So I think the unki marketing problem थोड़ी सी nuanced है, but that's also I'm sure it's very very interesting work.
And Amul has also got
Yeah,
protein. I recently saw someone forwarded me. Amul has got, I think, protein as well. So now I think they would be pushing
yeah,
more for protein rather than all the other
absolutely.
categories. So a question I think we discussed about this sometimes back, and we were
Yeah.
talking about luxury. So post-pandemic, what is the change in India's consumer pattern? Like, have people got more money in hand to spend, like, or the top percentage only spending more? Are you seeing those changes in Indian market?
You're 100%. I think people after the pandemic kind of started tapering down. We saw a concept which is just globally known as revenge buying, revenge shopping, or whatever you might call it. Folks who had sit at home suddenly started traveling more. So travel firms made a killing, hotels and flights and ancillary services. Retail made a killing. So jewelry and fashion and shoes and watches and other categories made a killing. So I definitely feel that consumer behavior, I think it's just preaching to the converted. Consumer behavior has irreversibly changed pre and post COVID. Have folks started buying more? I definitely feel folks have started buying more. So in terms of, and we have enough data to kind of support that overall consumption, the consumption story for India over the last 3 years. Of course, they are not only COVID, right? There would have been a bunch of other stories. For example, the capital markets started doing better after the COVID downturn. So immediately, of course, a lot of people made money. Uh, Before 2023, of course, there was a funding cycle which was a certain way. People were getting crazy amount of hikes on. So bunch of those macroeconomic factors also. Of course, we had a stable government at the center. There was a lot of optimism and real growth which was being created and so on and so forth. So I'm saying multiple factors just ensured that retail had a huge comeback story. Were people buying more luxury than ever before? Yes. Were people buying more, but the how they were buying fundamentally changed. So initially, and about luxury, I also feel that luxury in India is about finding needle in a haystack. So it's not, you can't say a top 6 cities में या top 8 cities में luxury है. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Luxury is also about those 100 rich families in Surat. It's about those 50 rich families in Darbhanga district or in Vijayawada and so on and so forth, right? So there are pockets of riches throughout the country, right? And that's the beauty of our country. So it's a geographical distribution problem. Unlike say US where there's a coastal East Coast West Coast phenomena, or say even China where most of the consumption is concentrated towards one side of the coast, right? But of course, by nature of the geography where they are, in India, that's not the case. Of course, the bulk still comes out of the cities, but true luxury consumption, like the long tail, is very very long. So that's, and those are people who are limited by reach, access, and distribution. So the person who was a very rich merchant in Surat was probably making a weekend trip to Bombay, going to Palladium, buying everything on cash, और somebody who is very rich in Ahmedabad or Ludhiana was taking a trip कि ठीक है stop over हुआ London के अंदर or something. I went, I shopped very very heavily, and these are, and average value purchase would be 100 euros and above, right? Would be average unit value of everything that. So these would be 80,000 rupee shoes, and these would be lakh rupee dresses. So proper true luxury. So Balenciaga and Gucci and Versace. So frontline luxury जिसको हम कहते हैं, not bridge. Folks were buying that already, but they were buying it in different avenues. So they were buying it at duty frees, they were buying it in, they were getting their cousins to get it back when they came to India. Now the thing is, the entire consumption pattern post COVID has changed. What has happened is, of course, Agio Lux came in and Tata Click Luxury started scaling up, and a bunch of other players came in and started premiumizing their offerings. So a lot of those brands which were never available online just started coming online. So today, if you are sitting in Vijayawada पहले आपके पास ऑप्शन ही था. If you had to buy a Coach handbag, now Coach handbag would be anywhere between 40 and 80,000 rupees, right? You had to go to a Delhi or a Bombay, or you had to travel abroad to get access to it, or somebody had to travel and do something, or somebody had to come to Vijayawada and probably set up a trunk show or something like that to do it. But abhi kya hai? Tata Click Luxury, Ajio Luxe, bunch of other, there's Farfetch and Net-a-Porter which are doing global selling. आपके घर आ जाएगा. So suddenly you have the same access. Like what happened in e-commerce, say about 8 to 10 years ago, now the same thing has happened in luxury e-commerce post-COVID. So now everything has happened where reach, access, and distribution problems has been solved through e-commerce. The second thing is in terms of people going to malls. Abhi maybe in a lot of places, like a place like Indore, a place like Gwalior, they may not have luxury malls. That's where the format like the White Crow, which I worked on, which is basically you put everything inside one multi-brand store, and rather than creating exclusive brand stores, and that's where people can go in and they can find a Diesel ka denim, they can find a Emporio Armani ka shirt, and they can pair it with the Onitsuka ka shoe, or they can buy something slightly more expensive, like a Xenia jacket or so on and so forth, right? Because I'm just taking Indore's example because it's a city with a lot of riches. It's an amazing story, but maybe it doesn't have.
I belong to that similar part. I lived in
So you
Indore.
know,
I
right?
belong
There
to
are
that
enough rich
region.
people there, but other luxury mall proper banne mein, like with what is proper luxury, it'll take a while. So that's where formats like this have opened. Ajilux and Tata Click we spoke about. So that geography problem has been solved, I think, post COVID, and that's where this huge chunk of customer, this huge 40-50% of customer, which was either shopping abroad or getting their cousins bring in or doing weekend trip to bigger cities, all of them have started directly purchasing, and they know that now the difference between luxury products when you go to Dubai and London, companies have solved for it, right? कोई इतना difference नहीं है. So and you get great after sale service. So I think all of these factors combined, the luxury consumption has exponentially gone up. And I'm talking, of course, fashion is something I'm closer to, so I understand that this trend has definitely taken place. But if you look at any luxury, any discretionary spend, gadi, ghadi, jewelry, luxury housing, it's the same trend. Folks are spending much more on everything, and it's a super interesting consumer transition pre and post COVID.
I tell this to a lot of my friends or people who have come to
Yep.
Canada long ago who do not right now
Hmm.
know what's happening in India. I'm like, after a certain point of time, there will be no cousin of ours who will be asking us to get things to India because सब
Absolutely.
कुछ वहीं पे मिल रहा है. शायद आईफोन में प्राइस आर्बिट्राज है थोड़ा, but I think eventually that will also
Yeah,
even
so
out.
folks like I'm saying folks like us, right? When we travel outside of India now, there's minimal shopping that happens. There's absolutely like I took a trip to Southeast Asia 2 months ago, and me and my wife bought absolutely nothing right there. Matlab, it was like just pretty much everything you get. Like we have a guy for मतलब हर चीज के लिए you just have a great ecosystem. I think that's the India consumerism story कि आपको पता है अगर आप Palladium से लोगे, UB City से लोगे और you buy from any of these places, of course you'll get after sale service. You know that even if there's a scratch on the bag, that guy will service it for 10 years. Uh, or for watches, you know who are the right people to talk to. फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंजम्पशन, राइट? यू नो कि इस वेबसाइट से अगर मैं लूंगा तो ये कैशबैक मिलेगा, इतना मेरे को क्रेडिट कार्ड पॉइंट्स, एवरीबडी हैज दैट कैलकुलेशन इन देयर हेड. सो आई फील getting your cousins to bring in something from abroad, that's going to become a smaller and smaller part of the consumer behavior, because वो reach access distribution वाला जो problem था, I think largely has been solved. Like the India story, I'm super bullish about the consumerism story is because I think zoom out अगर करके देखो ना यार, तो India is basically it's a supply constrained thing. Supply creates the demand. So you can say यार इस चीज की तो डिमांड नहीं है, बट एक बार सप्लाई क्रिएट करके देखो. फॉर एग्जांपल, go to Gwalior and open a new fine dining luxury restaurant. Immediately the rich people of Gwalior will flock there. आपको एक महीना reservation नहीं मिलेगा उधर. It's a supply constrained. That's how India works. So now Balenciaga has opened up in Geo World Plaza on the 1st of November, and people already knew about that brand for years and years, but it had never existed in flesh and blood in India. So that pent up demand was always there. So that's what I think the India story is also about, creating that supply. अगर टेस्ला आएगा, आपको लगता है कि टेस्ला विल नॉट गेट सोल्ड? ऑफ कोर्स टेस्ला विल गेट सोल्ड आउट, राइट, इन अ मैटर ऑफ डेज, because there is that pent up demand which is already there. So it's just about being able to sustainably create that supply and take advantage of the huge consumerism story which is playing out in India.
What part of Indian consumer or what percentage of Indian consumers are a target market for people who are not selling soap or basic necessities? Like, what is that addressable market in for, say, fashion company, not just luxury, but general
You
fashion
see, everybody
or
is, see, at the
otherwise?
end of the day, roti kapda makan, right? Everybody is wearing apparel. Everybody is wearing shoes beyond a certain point of the pyramid. So if you look at addressable market, there is enough money to be made for every player in the market. Whether you are a local player, whether you're a local tailor, or whether you are Balenciaga selling clothes and everybody in between. So सबको पैसा बनाने के लिए बहुत है, right? That's the India opportunity is such that there is enough money for everybody to go home with their stomachs full. Uh, if you're talking what is the top end of the pyramid, I think the top end of the pyramid is about 10 million. There's just 10 million people out there, and who can 1 crore.
One
I think that's
crore,
the
right?
top end. Like folks
10
who
million, yeah.
have an iPhone, pay their bills through cred, they have one or two vehicles in the house, and of course, we can go finer and finer and define it as much as we want to. But for true first line luxury, of course, it's much smaller than this. But say anybody who's buying, who has appetite to buy a super dry or a DC. So I would say it's a premium end of fashion. I definitely feel the addressable market and obtainable market out there is 10 million for sure. Beyond that, it's just unlimited, like the amount of addressable. So we have 1.4 billion people in the country. Definitely if you shave out people who are extremely, like, what the government calls destitutes, right? If you shave that part of the market out, even then there's almost a billion people. That's your addressable market for creating any kind of a large part of the Gujarat success story of people around the Surat belt and people around that entire area. It's just that there is so much appetite for low cost fashion, and there's so much appetite for low cost product. What a lot of e-commerce players are now kind of getting into and kind of tapping onto, what used to be sold at your local kapde ka dukan, right, is now what you're seeing online as well.
Yeah.
So there's and these are products at 200 300 rupee asp, and they're not expensive, they're functional. So uh, I think there's absolutely huge addressable and obtainable market for this end of the pyramid, and there's enough margin and money to be made.
So, on that point, since I like to understand the nuances between marketing or
Hmm.
general business in different countries, how
Hmm.
does marketing differ in India versus, say,
Hmm.
something in Southeast Asia versus, say, Europe and America? Like if you have to do
Hmm.
a campaign or in general in these locations, how would it
Okay.
differ in the
Also,
four
that's a
geographies?
loaded question. I of course don't have as much experience of working with as many geographies, but जितना मेरे को experience है उसके हिसाब से I can tell you. For diesel, diesel is of course headquartered in Italy. I'll take that example, and of course very European in its heritage and 40-year-old brand, huge brand in the premium space, basically the kings of denim. Uh, so they work with, they of course have a huge creative kind of ecosystem internally. They also work with the Publicis Milan, Publicis London office. So I had the opportunity of working with some of those people for some of the campaigns, right? Of course, India maybe had our own ecosystem, but of course, some of the global overall campaigns, they would involve a lot of the local marketing folks also, for each of the subsidiaries to come in and kind of give their views and kind of be involved in the creation process to an extent. So when I used to get the opportunity of traveling there, मेरे को लगता था यार definitely कहानी अलग है. There's a big difference in how we treat marketing and how a lot of folks there treat marketing. And I can just talk European versus Indian. I have better insight on that. I've not worked with a lot of Southeast Asian brands, won't be able to say. American brands, of course, we can probably extend that to from the European example and extrapolate. But the thing is, what I felt was two, three vectors. Number one is the amount of patience of investing large sums of money, taking long-term calls on brands. That's something I think we don't show enough patience on. We want results almost immediately, even if it is to a IPL campaign. हमें 14 दिन में देखना है. We want to see our awareness, recall, all other measures, downloads, sign-ups, whatever you're trying to track, right? We want everything to start moving immediately. ऐसा देखो होता नहीं है. There they will take large scale calls, right? Like, and I'm saying even in the fashion business. So Diesel will take long-term 3-year calls, and they will see that strategy play out. Like Nike will take 3-year calls and 5-year calls. Like, hey, this is what we are going to eventually. So Nike, when they were trying to build a sustainable women's business, कि यार ये हम बनाएंगे. मतलब this is what we will stand for. This is what we will do. This is what we will not do. And that of course came through in the marketing. So I think that's for sure. Second is in terms of resources. I think in terms of resources, the sheer budgets and the sheer scale at which a lot of these brands operate is crazy. It's just something else. They have like 200 people working on your account and either 10 bande kaam kar rahe hain. So obviously difference hota hai. One person is hustling 5 people's job. So here so that's again another big difference. Third would be, I think, thinking from first principles. I've seen a lot of European marketing ecosystems, or even when I was at Carrier, which is again an American firm owned by UTC, which is listed at Nasdaq. They had we used to go back to first principles a lot. कि यार, fundamentally क्या करना है? The thing is, something in the Indian context, I feel we are very competitor driven. Like at Carrier, you see Daikin kya kar raha hai and LG kya kar raha hai and everything, or so on and so forth, right? If you're any, for example, if you're a credit card app, if you're one card, so one card has Slice and Unicard, all of these nice fintech cards which have come out. So you'll be like, अरे इसने ये कर दिया, तो right, Zepto will feel, अरे Blinkit ने ये कर दिया, then I need to do some part of it. Blinkit ने किया, अरे Swiggy Instamart ने ये कर दिया, and so on. So I feel a large part of strategy is also driven by competitors in India, and that's how the player is, right? We're still trying to find our feet in a lot of categories. In European ecosystem, I just thought they were just oblivious to it. They just thought, hey, this is what we want to do, ये हमें करना है, and this is the road ahead of us, and that's how we'll keep investing. So I think on these three vectors, I definitely see a big difference in how marketing is done across continents. There are certain very good things. Like I feel it's not only a picture of, so I feel in terms of speed, the kind of stuff which Indian marketing ecosystems are able to do within the limited resources that they have, within the limited time that they're often given by founders and leadership teams, their ability to create that kind of impact is magical, right? मतलब ऐसे होगा कि आईपीएल डील क्रैक होगी, 20 दिन के अंदर शूट किया, क्रिएटिव डाला, मीडिया प्लान बना, सब कुछ हो गया, राइट? सो एंड दे वर एबल टू just create success out of it. People sitting in large scale legacy ecosystems in America and Europe cannot even imagine. So there's breadth and depth as a problem. So I definitely feel speed and bias for action is something which is super high, and also the ability to hustle. You take money away from an Indian marketer, वो फिर भी कुछ ना कुछ कर लेगा. वो फिर भी फ्री रिसोर्सेज देख के हाथ पैर मार लेगा कि यार इधर से ये करता हूँ, इधर से जुगाड़ लगाता हूँ, इधर मेरा बैचमेट है, ये कुछ कर देगा. That's how people do, right? That's how. But if you take that, if you take out the ability to
Yeah.
write checks from a lot of larger legacy international ecosystems, they will be handicapped. And COVID taught us that. Suddenly nobody had any money. And अचानक से वहाँ के इकोसिस्टम ठप हो गए. हम लोग फिर भी कुछ ना कुछ कर रहे थे. So yeah, so I think there's good and bad, but yeah, the worlds are very different, but they're slowly converging.
I think it's also because Europe is a lot more relaxed and maybe a bit more laid back than India, so to say. Like even culture wise, right?
Hmm.
Working in Europe, and I have not worked in Europe, so it will always be
Hmm.
like whatever I've seen on social media or otherwise. They're more relaxed, right? They work their hours and then they go off.
So my
I think
experience has been
India is
slightly
more like
different. I
mission driven
definitely
that way.
see where they are coming from, because at least the set that I got the opportunity to work with, a lot of I spent a lot of time going to Italy, spending a lot of time with teams there. Uh, I definitely thought they worked very hard. They worked very deep in what they did. They questioned first principles again and again. But did they party harder? Definitely they partied harder. So I think there's no. I think I think with Indian corporates, one thing that I see is हम बीटी बहुत ज़्यादा लेते हैं. मतलब basically अरे बहुत काम है, बहुत ये कलेश चल रहा है. मतलब it's like we just take our lives very seriously, and when we know none of that cribbing is going to add any value. So if you take it from the Italians, are they relaxed, less relaxed, more relaxed? No, I'm probably not qualified to say, but at least what I saw is outside of work they take themselves very not seriously, right? The thing is, and we are not able to switch off with as much precision. The moment your work is done, you'll carry that work to home, you'll carry that work, even if you're drinking with friends, you'll start talking about work. And the thing is, I think a lot of that inability to switch off and switch on, I think is something which
Even your family knows everything. Like a lot of time, your family
absolutely.
knows that okay, this is that colleague that your dynamics is good. This is that colleague your dynamics is not good. I don't think that outside India and in a lot
Yeah,
of
so
Western world, people talk that much
they
about their
should. So
work in their
me and
homes
my
on their
spouse
dinner
have a
tables.
almost unwritten rule that we normally don't talk about work unless it's something where we feel that the other person can add value. So my wife is an HR at a bank. There are a lot of things which she adds critical value, right? Because she sees a very different side of the business that I see. So there's a lot of things that I learn from her, and so on and so forth. But काम के बारे में कि यार ये हुआ वो हम नहीं बात करते, राइट? बिकॉज द थिंग इज मेरे को उसका नहीं सुनना, तो मेरे को उसको भी मेरा सुनना नहीं चाहिए एट द एंड ऑफ द डे. So it's a very difficult muscle for Indians to develop. It's a very difficult muscle for us to develop, that we don't bring work issues back home, or we don't make work our lives. But it's super critical, and folks who are able to do that are the folks who are able to run longer. Otherwise, all kind of, it's one of the biggest indicators of burnout is your inability to compartmentalize your life, which I think Europeans do super well, super well.
Yeah, so I meet a lot of folks like where I live. I meet a lot of folks walking down the elevator or otherwise. I do not know. I
Yeah,
talk to them on regular basis, but I don't know what they do for work. But I know that they love dogs. I know that they love a certain sports team. But I think Indians' second
yeah,
or third question would be that कहाँ काम करते हो या क्या करते हो? So that is a
yeah,
ingrained
yeah.
part. I mean, good bad ugly is a totally different thing.
Yeah,
But
matlab
वो
it's very
पूछ
difficult.
लेते हैं
Like if
कि
in
क्या
case a
करते
lot
हो?
of people, and it's a very sad reality. If we ask this question, कि यार, okay, tell me about yourself, you eventually start talking about where you work, right? But maybe there's more to your identity, that you're a family man, you're a person who follows a certain football club, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. So I just think there's a lot we can learn, but I think with now folks working in multinational environments, a lot of that diffusion is happening. So Gatha Mazduri, jitni probably previous generation ne ki, this generation will not do. And now when I meet what I can liberally call the next generation of marketers or people entering the workforce, say folks 10 years younger to me, then I see a very different view on what they want work to be in their lives, right? So versus what, so we are kind of this in between generation which kind of got a little bit of legacy. उधर का भी थोड़ा सा रगड़ा मिला और नीचे से भी थोड़ा सा वोकनेस आने की कोशिश कर रहा है, राइट? सो वी आर समवेयर इन द मिडल. बट आई फील, बट if you meet what are 21 23 year olds, you'll be fucked, यार. मतलब I feel so inspired.
What
Yeah,
do what do they
as
think?
much
Like, what is
opportunity
their
as
thought
I've had to
process?
interview folks, folks are very clear on what they want, but even more clear on what they don't want, which is very clear, which is something which I think folks who are currently in their
Okay,
mid 30s, they don't have, right? Or they absolutely, they have
they
the
can say
absolute
no.
ability to
They
say
have the
no.
ability to say no.
So I've managed folks who've been very clear that hey, this is the role which work has in my life, and this is the boundary, and they've been splendid workers. It's not that, so our, I think, folks my age and my stage of career definitely may feel even a little guilty sometimes. कि यार, they'll feel, hey, this is it. When I'm at work, I'll be bloody 100%, but when I'm off, and don't you dare call me. And a lot of those legacy status quo things कि अरे वो senior है, उसको ऐसे लिखने का है मेल, उसको ऐसे बोलने का है. A lot of folks who are kind of up and coming now, they have no respect for the status quo, which is the most amazing thing that they have. That they will question people, like, and sometimes folks who are reporting into me will question my boss's boss, and suddenly I am feeling nervous कि अरे कुछ. But it's an amazing exchange, right? It's an amazing, and that's where I feel a lot of respect कि hey, maybe when I was 23 year olds, I did not have the balls to ask this question to somebody who's 7 levels above me, but this guy does, and that's beautiful, right? So so it's very easy for every generation to say अरे आजकल की generation में ये नहीं है, वो ये करते हैं, उनको काम नहीं करने का है, उनको सिर्फ ये करने. Absolutely not. Beautiful. They're so clear in what they want in life, and they're very clear कि मेरे को इतने टाइम तक काम करना है, this is my side hustle, this is what I want to do, this is the role which work plays in my life, this is what I want to do after work, even within my work, this is stuff which I want to do, this is stuff which I don't want to do. Which is amazing, which makes your, so if you're a people manager, that makes your life very easy as well as difficult. That you have to, आपको वो जो legacy mental models का जो ताज पहनाया है आपकी previous generation से, वो आपको निकाल के काम करना है. You have to just put that aside and say कि ठीक है यार, this guy's motivations, this guy's triggers and barriers to what work means for him or her, इसको समझते हुए, how can I ensure that I can facilitate their career in the best possible way, make sure that they are contributing to the team, they are happy, they are retained. It's a great experience, and I absolutely enjoy doing it.
So basically, you don't have to do the guessing game. यहाँ पे.
Oh,
Y-
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes
I think
means yes and no
हमारी
means no.
generation में
There's no
there's
maybe in
just,
between.
मतलब, I know I'm sounding very old when I'm saying हमारी generation, but like I'm talking of folks who are early 20s versus folks like me who are like mid 30s, right? So that generation, मतलब उसमें जो difference है, right? We got just so much of this legacy baggage of अगर हमें नो बोलना है तो दिस इज हाउ वी हैव टू सैंडविच इट, एंड वी हैव टू बी रिस्पेक्टफुल हियर, एंड वी हैव टू बी इनडायरेक्ट हियर, एंड वी हैव टू अभी इतना बोलेंगे, नेक्स्ट टाइम ये होगा. Just thinking too much about relationships. That's what I really admire, right? Folks can just disagree to a point openly, present a very alternate point of view, and maybe 5 out of 10 times that's a beautiful point of view which you never even considered. So I'm really bullish about, and in case you see what folks are building in especially tech companies and say startups, and if you meet people from there, you get very bullish about the India story. यार ये 21 साल का लड़का है, this is a 23-year-old content creator girl. You look at those people and you just feel so bullish about the India story यार कि this country will be something, right? This country will do something because the 21-year-old of today knows and believes that he or she can take over the world. And that this is an emotion which is very scarce. This is an emotion which was there in early 90s Chinese kids, and that's an emotion that I'm seeing in the 20 to 25-year-old bracket of Indians today, probably, of course, even elder. But जो एक पागलपन और एक जुनून है कि if there's somebody who can, for example, you just take a core problem in some legacy industry, banking, steel, it'll be like कि यार प्रॉब्लम है, अगर कोई सॉल्व कर सकता है तो मैं कर सकता हूँ. लाइक दैट शेयर कॉन्फिडेंस, एंड के करेंगे यार, 2-3 साल ट्राई करेंगे, कोई बात नहीं, सैलरी नहीं आएगी ना, दोस्त के घर सो जाऊंगा. आई एम जस्ट सेइंग दैट ballsiness is, and I speak to so many, and I'm now starting to expose myself to more and more of these folks because I just feel that energy makes me feel very bullish about where the India story is going to go, because of the sheer uninhibitedness of a lot of folks that I meet, and they are proper builders, whether they are founders, whether they are operators, whether they are whatever they are doing, right? These are folks, and I'm sure folks listening or you would have also had similar kind of experiences, that when you speak to people you feel a different kind of energy because maybe folks 10 years 15 years younger to you and me, they grew up in a slightly different environment, slightly different. They didn't have uh, they grew up internet first. They grew up in a different their adolescence was in a very different India than what mine was. So when they were forming up their mental models of कि दुनिया क्या है और इंडिया की जगह क्या है, what will this country do, what will work be, what will my career be, when they were forming all of these ideas, the context and the environment around them was very different from what it was for us. Like it was different for our parents. उनके लिए it was about safety, security, and saving for a rainy day. For us, it was about growing and expanding and scaling and making a name for ourselves. For the next generation, what I believe is maybe it's about taking moonshots, doing something which truly does something specific, and taking uninhibited moonshots. So which I think which is beautiful.
People who entered workforce in 2020, for them,
Yeah,
India
yeah,
is a $3.5 trillion economy,
yeah,
right, after 2020. So they see that India confidence. And I think probably when someone
yeah,
started working in
yeah,
2005, for them, India was sub $2 trillion
yeah.
economy, which was not even, I think, not even top five.
Yeah, so
I think that
it's
confidence
it's
is coming in.
sometimes amazing. So a lot of these macro numbers, यार मेरे को भी honestly समझ नहीं आते, right? अभी 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 10 trillion में क्या फर्क है? Maybe I'm not able to appreciate. But I'll tell you, when I met an edtech founder very recently, right? This is a guy who's like, I won't name the company or the person. He's a IIT Delhi CS grad. 7 years he built his company, didn't see a rupee of revenue. लिटरली लाइक कैसे सर्वाइव करता है, अरे गर्लफ्रेंड की सैलरी आती थी, गर्लफ्रेंड की प्लेसमेंट होगी थी, एंड थोड़ा सा पैसा वहां से आ जाता था, दोस्त के घर रहता था, उसके ड्राइंग रूम में सो जाता था. 7 years that guy built, and today he's invested, they've just closed series B. Just I'm just saying कि ये कॉन्फिडेंस कहाँ से आ रहा है, मतलब the thing is, and these are not folks from rich families, right? These are folks from just low middle class families who will say कि यार build करेंगे, कोई बात नहीं यार, मेरी सैलरी नहीं आएगी ना, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, मतलब. And then you are seeing your batchmates, कोई न्यूयॉर्क में फोटो लगा रहा है, कोई एमएस कर रहा है एमआईटी के अंदर, and like life for those IITians are very different. But to have that conviction कि यार ये प्रॉब्लम मैं सॉल्व करूंगा, टाइम लगेगा बट करूंगा मैं ही. And then to be able to stick with it for 5 to 7 years without seeing a rupee of revenue, without seeing any success in funding, with your seed running out, having co-founder issues, so many things that person saw, and now eventually they have hit product market fit in the most beautiful way, and they are going to be, I'm sure, within the next 3 years they're going to be a unicorn. So when I see stories like this, it's not about the numbers or the scale or the growth story. What is more important is यार कि जब वो अकेला था, उसके पास ना ही पैसे थे, ना ही उसके पास रेंट पे घर थी, गर्लफ्रेंड के पैसे के साथ वो मैनेज कर रहा है, या कि लैपटॉप यहाँ से ले लिया, इससे वो ले लिया, जब वो हसल कर रहा था. द थिंग इज दैट बिलीफ सिस्टम कि यार we will do something and we will crack it and we will create something which people want. I think that belief story is what really makes me feel very bullish about slightly younger folks, and definitely about the overall India consumerism story. Whether it is marketers, whether it is technical folks, whether it is MBAs, I just feel very happy whenever I see stuff like this.
That's a great thing, I also want that India
Absolutely.
gets into that place where it should be. So you're almost at 1 hour mark, Harinder. Great speaking with you. Learned so much about influencer marketing or otherwise how Gen Z, so our conversation segued
Hmm.
from
So cool.
marketing to Gen Z's to
I'm
India
very
story.
happy. Thank you so much for inviting me on the
Thank you
podcast. I
so
really
much.
hope you extracted some value out of this conversation. Uh, Thank you so much. I